different opinions are really healthy.
No shade.
The best way to see that is when you look at the influencers' stories and you see all the views are pretty much 50k, 48k, it's fake.
Sorry, don't get triggered.
Does this house believe we've hit peak influencer? Hi, is everyone ready? I'm trying to sit as equivocally between the two sides as possible so as not to be biased in any way, shape or form. Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight. This is the second in our DIGI debate series. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Shoreditch House, for their investment in this evening. Just a little bit of a preamble so you know who we are, why we're here. The Digital Fairy is a youth communications studio and creative consultancy, and influencer marketing is at the heart of what we do. We have a division called the Network Fairy, which unsurprisingly does influencer networks. And we work with clients on an influencer level like Disney, Adidas, Unilever, and my name is Livvi. I'm a strategist, and I'm going to be chairing tonight's discussion. As you all know, we are here to debate the motion, this house believes we have hit peak influencer, a controversial, deliberately controversial proposition. Social media stars are everywhere from Coachella to Chernobyl. They are spawning everything from bikinis to cleaning, and 1 in 5 children in the UK wants to be an influencer when they grow up, which is either terrifying and dystopian or amazing and a really, really good thing for your brand or your company. Even good old X Factor isn't immune to the influencer effect. I spent my Saturday night at X Factor Celebrity. It was crazy. So has social media celebrity reached its peak, or is this just the tip of the influencer iceberg? We're going to find out tonight from some amazing, amazing panelists. Because this is an influencer event, I feel compelled to tell you what the social handles are tonight. So if you want to follow the action or contribute your opinion digitally, you can find the Digital Fairy on the Instagram handle at the Digi Fairy, and Twitter is at the Digi Fairies, because I think the Digi Fairy on Twitter is held by a 12-year-old girl somewhere. We can't get it off her. And so on there you can find also the handles of all the speakers as well. So essentially, is that right? Yeah, I feel it makes us look quite ill. Also, I'm sorry for holding this microphone like Keith Lemon, but basically we have to hold them this way, otherwise they can't hear us. Can we? Okay, that's fine. We'll continue. Well done. So essentially, the reason why we're doing a debate tonight and not a panel is because as an agency, we had been going to so many panel discussions, as I'm sure everyone else here does, week on week, and they had fantastic lineups. The topics were really interesting, but it kind of felt like we were getting to a stage where everyone was agreeing with each other. The amount of times people were saying yeah, I'd just love to echo that point kind of was getting a little bit too much. So what we wanted was to kind of break out of this rhetorical echo chamber and do something a bit different. Host something where it felt like you could encourage both sides to kind of get their hands dirty, play the devil's advocate, and really deconstruct and get to the bottom of an issue without people feeling like they were attacking each other, or without feeling beholden to any kind of commercial relationships that they had. So that's the aim of this. It's a rhetorical debate to kind of really unpack this issue. And without wishing to say the T word, obviously in the current kind of social political climate, it's ever more important to break out of our echo chambers and hear two sides equally. So that's the idea tonight. So the evening format will be, I will eventually shut up and give over to the two sides, who will read some prepared speeches where they're going to lay out exactly why they believe we have or haven't hit peak influencer. And after they've kind of made their case, we'll then invite each side to kind of pick apart each other's side, and they can kind of deconstruct it and disagree. And then having done that, we'll then throw it open to you guys, which is where I need everyone to do their bit and come with your own opinions and your own disagreements, and kind of give it over to these guys, and they'll do their best to defend their side. And then we will have a vote. So who has a foam finger hand thing on their thing? Okay, right, so no, put them down. Because what we're going to do is we're going to do a pre-vote to see whether you guys are for or against the motion, and then we'll do it again at the end of the debate, and you have to then cast again, and we'll see whether your minds have been changed by the debate tonight or whether you really could have just stayed at home. So I obviously can't see anything because it's really bright up here, but we've got loads of DigiFairies around the room. So if you believe that we have hit peak influencer, can you please stick your either foam hand or real hand up in the air and hold it up there while the fairies come round and count the votes? Stick your hands up if you believe we have hit peak influencer. Lots of people from my own agency putting their hands up, a bit worrying. Come on, guys. Okay, shout when the votes have been counted, guys. Ooh. Oh, no, we shouldn't have put the dyslexic girl on the counting. No, it's fine. We trust you, Emily. Yeah, I know she might have her own agenda. Just don't know. Okay, cool. Right, so now if you do not agree, if you think we haven't hit peak influencer, if you think this is just the beginning, stick your hands up in the air. Oh my God, that is loads of people. Okay, and I'll leave that up there leave them up while... No, I saw you put your hand down. Keep it up there. They're counting. No, you don't count. You've been invited to speak. You don't count. Okay, cool. Shout when that's done and you've got an idea. Ooh, it's like an election recount. It's so exciting. Okay. The people's vote. Okay, fab. Okay, cool. So, we'll do this again at the end and see if any of you have been swayed by this. So, okay, I'm so delighted now to announce the panel here tonight. So, speaking for the motion firstly, on my far right, we have Akash, who started his career at 22 as the youngest manager of Estee Lauder, working his way up to senior global digital manager for Dior perfumes. He built Dior's influencer strategy, generated more than $50 million in earned media revenue, and tripled growth in influencer sales while at the company. He was listed in this year's Forbes 30 Under 30, and he's recently launched his own enterprise, Akash Brands and Agency, and he is himself an influencer with over 290,000 followers on Instagram. So that's Akash. We also have with us Mercedes, who is a creative strategist by day and an entrepreneur by night. Mercedes is a truly multi-hyphenate creative across the fashion, music, and social media spaces. From the rapid growth of her own personal Instagram, which acts as a platform to showcase her streetwear style, to establishing Social Fixed, which is a LinkedIn for Black creatives, and DJing herself. She's previously worked at Adidas and Google, and she's now represented by Summer, which some of you may know is a leading global influencer marketing agency. And she's worked with brands including Instagram, Giorgio Armani, and Mercedes-Benz, which is obviously the perfect influencer brand partnership. So then on my left, speaking against the motion, who believe we have not hit peak influencer, I have first Irene Moore. Irene is a brand strategist and the creator of PR for Beauty Bosses. Oh, sign me up. Previously head of digital communications at L'Oreal, she's helped launch some of the biggest influencer brands in beauty, like NYX Cosmetics, Kat Von D, and she consults for brands like Frou, Cantu Beauty, and Dior. She's an OG beauty PR turned business coach, and she has been enlisted by global companies like Virgin, Startup, Bespoke, Twitter, and even Instagram itself to share her insights on the role that influencers play in the future of PR and branded content. And then we have Marina. So before taking her current post as joint head of fashion and beauty partnership at youth media platform Kyra TV, Marina worked in partnerships at Sony Music and Polydor Records. She spent her career structuring relationships between talent and brands, helping innovate traditional sponsorship into an arm of strategic marketing. In her current role, she creates powerful relationships for PAC.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Oh my God, this is like a debate. Hi. I disagree. No. Someone. It would be such a plot twist if I had to debate with someone else doing an event. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. So what you need to know is basically she's head of brand partnerships at Cairo TV, which, as we all know, that this is huge. For those who maybe aren't as familiar with Cairo, essentially they run social-first streetwear entertainment shows that are really, really embedded within influencer culture, and they have a cult following amongst Gen Z audiences. So if you don't know, find a young person in your life and ask them, say the word Cairo, and they will know exactly what you're talking about. So I'm sorry you were interrupted by the omniscient narrator there, but okay, cool. So we're now going to open this debate with speeches. So I'm going to do one from each side, and then we will kind of kick off. So Mercedes, would you like to go first?
Hi, my name is Mercedes Benson, and I am arguing that we have hit peak influencer. Okay, so can anybody actually define to me what an actual influencer is? Anyone?
They don't have microphones. This is quite hard.
I know. Dramatic pause. Okay, I'll wait. You say it's somebody who is able to make an impact in people's lives, yet we place narcissistic models and selfie queens as frontrunners for global campaigns. They say influencers are content creators. Well, if that's the case, name me the most innovating campaign you can think of that doesn't involve highlighters, contours, and exquisite travel destinations that the average person couldn't actually afford. The real influencers aren't going viral for meme videos. The real influencers are the creatives, the directors, the social activists who are exciting real change in real life. And unfortunately, If we were to place it into your we can't work with anybody with less than 100k followers vertical, they might not necessarily make the cut. Kanye West, for example, is one of the most influential sneaker designers in this current age, yet he doesn't even have an Instagram. Ariana Renee had over 2 million followers and she couldn't even sell 36 T-shirts to reach her production line. That's the equivalent of getting my family to buy a T-shirt at Christmas dinner. Where are her real friends? And for these reasons, I firmly believe we have hit peak influencer. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a round of applause for that? Thank you so much. Okay, to counter it, come on, Marina, off you go. Yeah?
That was so good. Nearly made me change my mind.
We like the debate. We like it to be supportive, but also at the same time very critical.
No, it's great. Influencers are individuals able to sway the opinions and behaviours of others. Whether you'd prefer to call them creators, digital talent, or another synonym, it bears no effect on the legitimate ability for said individuals to influence those that trust them. My name is Marina, and I'll be arguing against the motion that we have hit the peak of influencer marketing. And to be really clear, I'm not arguing for slimming teas and tooth whitener. I'm arguing that the ever-changing consumption habits of young consumers that are representing more and more of a significant size of economic spend will lead brands to continue investing in influencer marketing as an important tool in their digital arsenal. My first point is follow the money. For the first time ever in 2019, digital is accounting for more than half of the world's global advertising budget. This paradigm shift has been happening in the sectors most relevant to social platforms, namely fashion and beauty, for years, with marketing budgets weighing heavier and heavier not just as digital spend, but as social spend. This change has come about because of where audience are now dwelling. YouTube is the biggest website on the planet with 2 billion active users monthly. Instagram is half of this at 1 billion monthly active users. And TikTok, sitting as the most downloaded app for the 5th consecutive quarter, has the same user base as IG at only a fraction of its lifespan. Because these are the platforms where audience are spending their time. These are the platforms where commercial brands will be focusing their budget and tapping into micro-communities to lay their brand storytelling and sell products. For brands, leaning on influencers with an affiliated audience is an effective way to play in the intersection between engagement and trust in an environment where, without an existing relationship with the consumer, you will not cut through. My second point is evolution. We're embryonic in the lifespan of influencer marketing as a tactic in digital. We're only beginning to graduate out of the wild west of digital to transform the sector into one that is more considered, better measured, and longer term in its campaigns and approaches. Influencer marketing is yet to mature and come into its own, let alone reach and pass its peak, which is connected to my third point. If we look at the most powerful individuals on socials and what they've managed to achieve through these platforms, it gives us a window into the future of the space and its wider possibilities. The most successful individuals in the world, outside of those running companies that shape our everyday lives at Amazon, Google, Apple, and the Facebook companies, have harnessed social platforms to create lucrative global audiences. These audiences trust, listen, and consume to such an extent that they have become multi-million-dollar revenue streams and show no signs of wavering. Kylie Jenner's lip kits, Kim Kardashian's apps, beauty products, perfumes, and shapewear, Jaden Smith's Just Water, KSI and Logan Paul's second boxing match, Rihanna's Fenty Empire, James Charles' sisters. These are some of the biggest figures in the world utilizing the same platforms available to all of us and using them in a way that makes them the epicenter of their business models. My prediction for the space is that influencers will be treated more and more as individual media channels over the coming years as audiences trust brands less and less and trust and relate to people more. As the space continues to evolve with more ambition, better analytics and measurement, and more sophisticated campaigns, I see the sector of digital marketing evolving massively, which makes me firmly believe we have not hit the peak in this sector. That was really difficult, actually. Thanks.
Fab. Okay, Akash, take it away.
So my name is Akash Mehta, and I am tonight arguing for the motion that we have hit peak influencer. So having worked 3 years in influencer marketing at Dior, there's a reason why I left to do influencer marketing at Dior. So I'm going to do 3 examples from a brand perspective. The first is, I call it influencer fee inflation. So what is influencer fee inflation? Well, for me, it's today. I think most of you would be in agreement to say, why is an influencer with 100K followers worth $1,000, let's say? There is no maths or no logic behind the cost that we put behind this because we don't really know what the worth is. And especially with vanity metrics like likes and impressions, which all can be bought and skewed as we know, we find it hard, as a brand to justify why we're spending X amount. And as an influencer, I actually stopped, as an influencer, but as someone who's branded as an influencer, I stopped doing paid partnerships because of an experience I personally had. So I used to charge around $2,000 for a photo, and actually one brand, an agency actually, in between the brand and myself, asked me what was my rate, and I said $2,000. And she said, but Akash, you're worth way more. I had way more budget saved for you. And I said, oh, thanks, but okay. And she goes, no, I'll give you 10,000. That's what I had. And I was like, okay. And you know what? I accepted it. And I was like, this is great. Thank you so much. And then actually, I felt quite guilty, but not that guilty because I had extra 8K. But when I was working at that time for Estée Lauder, I was like, no, this is wrong. So when I went to Dior, I made sure I was making sure that this was going to be corrected. And it was quite hard to really, really, truly correct. But it made me realize, most people who then would get given that 10K would say, oh, that's my new rate. I'm worth 10K for a photo. And that's what I call influencer fee inflation. So it takes one wrong brand or one wrong agency to overcharge, and that's your new rate. Because why would you then charge under what you just got paid for your previous gig when you're increasing your followers, right? So that was something that kind of really inspired me. And during my time at Dior for the last 3 years, I've had it all. I've had people with 20,000 followers charge me 1,000 euros for a story. I've had people, wanted to. I've had people pay, literally send money to post for Dior. And I'm like, why is there money in the post in my office? So I've had it all. But that really kind of made me realize, this influencer fee inflation thing, that's a big problem. Second is the lack of authenticity. So I think the most common thing we see from most influencers today, the influencers that we define as influencers, going back to Mercedes' point, is that they over-collaborate. We see ad more than any other word on the influencers' feed and stories. And I think that really leads to a lack of authenticity and credibility. Awareness for sure, but what's the impact of that awareness? And I think that's something that's very important, because for me, influence is defined by how credible it is and how influenced I am, not how aware I am. Otherwise, I'll be called awarers or something. So no, they're influencers. So And my third point is the fake and inactive following. So I've done a few talks recently and I've exposed my own Instagram. So I've developed a tool with third-party companies and Dior where we vet all our influencers. So we see all the fake following, real following that we can publicly see from public profiles. And we also can see the country location. And my account has like 50% inactive. So technically I don't have 290,000 followers. I have like 150,000 followers. And I'm very open about that. And I'm very happy with that because I don't really care about the number of followers. It's all changing. But unfortunately today, that's what we mainly go by. And I think, going back to Mercedes' point, influencers should not be judged by vanity metrics like followers because it's all kind of skewed and potentially fake. So I think in that argument, those 3 points, especially from a branded point of view, have made us realize we've hit peak influencer from what we currently define influencers. So that's what I strongly believe in.
Thank you. And last but not least, go off.
Good evening. Can I ask you a quick question? When was the last time you finished reading the internet? When was it? It's impossible. It's virtually impossible to reach peak influencer in a world of limitless content. It's impossible. So, Livvi, I'm going to tell you what you said to me.
Oh,
Livvi, I'm exposing it. I'm exposing it. So when Livvi approached me about this talk, she said, I mean, we really want you in this because you have a heritage view of influencers. Basically, I'm old, right? So I'm 28, plus another 10 years. And this is the reality. When I first started in building brands, old school, when we used to place ads in Marie Claire, R.I.P., yeah, it was a different ballgame. You could hit a peak because the select few, the journalists, the makeup artists, the people that were the creme de la creme were the ones that made those decisions. This is the reality now. When young people see hashtag spawn, hashtag ad, they're not stupid. They get it. This is their vocabulary. This is not something that we have grown into. You know, this is something that they are used to. They totally understand it. Influencers are as credible as J-Lo swishing her hair saying she was worth it. She doesn't shop in Boots. You know, but we all knew that that was the case. We all knew she wasn't really buying that shampoo. And I agree certain points in terms of influence needs to be influenced, but actually influence really equals reach. It's still the brand's responsibility to influence them with great products and a great story. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we talk about engagement rates, and I completely see that that's a big frustration for a lot of brands, but we have to know with every free platform, Facebook did it first. We used to build brands on Facebook pages. How many of you actually have a Facebook page now? Very few of us, right? So it's inevitable that Instagram was going to become a pay-to-play platform. That's nothing to do with the influencer. It's the algorithm, yeah? Because Instagram is owned by Facebook, which needs to make money. And my third point is, if we look at influencers themselves, they've totally wised up. What they're doing is creating their own brands. What they're doing is creating other platforms. They are not relying on things like Instagram and Facebook to be influential anymore. They're building email lists. They're creating experiences just the way that brands are. So whilst I appreciate that on Instagram, we may be getting a bit tired, for those 3 points, I believe that it's virtually impossible to hit peak influencer.
Fab. Thanks so much. Well done. Thank you to all the speakers actually for preparing a speech, because when I said you need to prepare a speech, there was mixed reaction.
I feel like I took it really seriously.
No, this was fab. This was really good. Okay, so does anyone have any points from each other's speech that you would immediately like to refute? Anyone got anything they're dying to say? Come on. Yeah, you do.
I would say...
First challenge of the night. Round of applause. Come on. First challenge.
To your point, I do feel the J-Lo argument wasn't that valid because you were saying, for example...
I'm ready for you.
Yeah. And, yeah. And my father owns J-Lo fragrances, so I can...
You've been told.
I can say this. No, I feel, for me, you're saying that, it's not, when she swishes her hair, everyone knows it's not real. Well, then people should know that that's not authentic. But then what's the positive angle of then? Why are they a good influencer then?
Yeah. No, we chat now. We chat. We
Okay.
argue.
So the point is this. Just like with traditional advertising, influencers are there for reach. And I know this, they weren't even called influencers when I first started in this game. They were just girls doing cool things with their hair and their makeup online, right? So now they're called influencers, but the influencer is there for reach. And in reality, JLo Fragrance is a collaboration, so I can understand that. But when she was a spokesperson for other people, people didn't genuinely believe that was how her hair looked so amazing. But she was aspirational. People wanted to get a little bite of her lifestyle. And I think we need to stop underestimating the intelligence of the audience. Like, people don't... I know authentic's banded around, but people really do understand that at 17 you're not able to afford a holiday in the Seychelles. I think people understand that. That's why 1 in 5 children want to be influencers, because they know it's aspirational. So that's the point. It's not that she's fake, but the use of influencer is for reach. It is the brand's job to do the influencing.
I do feel it's a brand's job to do the influence, but I feel like influencers, I think traditional media buy is reach, but I wouldn't say I would call an ad on the street an influencer, right? So there is a difference between a person on Instagram with credibility with an audience. I think their job is also to do a bit more than just the reach, is to also do the influence, because I feel that's the person, right? The brand can give the tools, but it's the influencer who has to make it believable, because it's not... I would say a good brand gives the influencer full reign, and then it's their job to make it authentic, not just to provide an audience of 1 million followers. Because then I think they're no longer called influencers; they would be called media buy, which they would hate to be called that, right?
But that's what we're doing.
We are, but I would say, the cost of a media buy, for example, when I put an ad in Times Square, it's a much lower cost a cost per impression than an influencer, or a CP. Cost per like, or cost per engagement. So why am I paying, say, 10,000 euros for someone of 200,000 followers when actually 10,000 euros would go so much further on an ad?
Because you're not... When you put an ad on Times Square, and this is one of the big bugbears I had at L'Oreal when I first started working with them, there's so much wastage when you put an ad for London Fashion Week on the side of a bus. Yeah, half the people in central London are tourists. They're not going to be here. Right?
Or wearing rubbish clothes.
Yeah, or they shop in Primark or wherever. Nothing wrong with it. In case someone works for Primark, don't get triggered. But it's.
I'm actually wearing Primark pants right now. Thank you.
Don't get triggered. I told you. But that's the point. That the wastage is that's why the cost per impression is lower. When you speak to a girl, I work with an Afro hair brand, right? When I speak to a girl who has got that specific hair type that no one else has, she is going to be influential, and actually she does deserve to be paid that, because she is speaking to my direct audience. And that's why the cost per impression is expensive. I'm not saying that I think the prices are astronomical. I honestly think they're crazy, they're getting crazy. But the reality is you're speaking to the audience, you're getting the connection with your direct consumer. That's why. When you put an ad somewhere, it's wastage. That's my argument.
I don't think you can compare sort of traditional media and influencer marketing, whatever you want to call it. I think we're comparing apples and oranges. I think in the one sense, you're right, reach is what you are getting if you're wrapping a bus or you're putting up posters or what have you. I think when you're connecting with an influencer, and for argument's sake, let's say it's the right influencer with a powerful audience that's valuable to the brand, you're getting sentiment, you're getting advocacy, you're getting all of these other things that you just, and all of those things you can also measure. So they're connected into a platform that gives you full visibility of where those clicks are going, where, like, if you're swiping up, if you're directing people to a link, you can track all of that. I think that's my biggest thing around, digital. Like, you can measure digital, and I get, why people are still doing TV ads, sort of ish. But if you do things on digital, you can actually learn more from it.
So just to kind of throw this out there, why I feel influencer marketing has reached its peak is because, for me, you talk about influencers, but the word influencer is such a blanket term. Why don't you call people by what they do? If they are an artist, say that they're an artist. If they're a dancer, say that they're a dancer. So for me, I feel like the influencer marketing world is just quite wishy-washy. Just say that you're going to hire a particular person for, the service that they require, and you will reach that said audience. Why does everybody have to be under this blanket influencer term? And then secondly, the reason why I have a problem with influencer marketing is because at one point it was about having hundreds and thousands of followers, right? But now you lot are going back on yourself. Now you guys don't want to work with macro influencers because they're now celebrities. So now you want to work with micro influencers who have 10,000 followers, 5,000. So before you know it, you're just going to be working with everyday people. And then it's just going to be word of mouth. So where are you guys going? Are we going up? Are we going down? Sideways?
God, as an ordinary person, I can't wait for the day that brands pay me directly.
100%. Don't call it influencer marketing. Let's just call it word of mouth. That's all it is. We're just spreading the word.
It's basically is that. If I can tackle those points kind of one by one. So if you go onto the usage of influencer as a term, I kind of feel like I hate the term influencer. I really do. It's kind of like the term urban. It feels really lazy, but there isn't anything better. So
I've got some suggestions.
So here we are. Creators,
but they're all the same thing. They're all the same thing.
They're not influencer marketing.
But we're all calling it the same thing. It's like it's an umbrella term for the same thing, if you know what I mean. So I think generally as an industry we need to stop wincing at the term influencer and just embrace it. It's not going anywhere, and it's a really easy term to use. So I think we should all just get really comfortable with the term influencer.
Everyone just say influencer. Say it. Say
influencer really loud.
Influencer. The taboo word is over. It's fine.
And I agree on this sort of brands were looking to partner with individuals with a massive following, and then they were like, no, micro-influencers are the thing now, and they're looking for sort of more authentic partnerships. But I think that's part of the evolution of the space. I think that's part of us learning. I think that's part of us graduating out of, a platform, particularly I think Instagram actually held most of the brunt of it. All of these brands didn't know what they were doing, just throwing money at people who would take it. But I think that's part and parcel of learning and sort of everyone who's in this space kind of growing with it.
So once Instagram removes likes, what happens then?
Instagram is removing likes because influencers are getting too powerful and they want brands to spend money on their platform directly. Don't let anyone try to tell you it's about mental health. It's not. It's about
So then won't
money.
It become advertising? It's not going to become influencer marketing.
What do you mean?
Well, if Instagram is removing likes, now influencers don't necessarily have that
metric
to quantify how influential they are, unless obviously you're looking at the back data, but nobody cares about that. So then how are we going to measure the effect of influencer marketing? It will just become straight advertising, because now brands are going to have to guarantee that whatever campaign they're doing with said influencer is going to reach a certain demographic or reach by force and not just organically, because they can't measure how effective that organic reach will be once they start to remove certain metrics that every influencer relies on. Should we just call it advertising?
And also, I'm going to quickly, and also with, obviously we're talking mainly about Instagram because this is where most of the influencer marketing is going right now. My last 3 years have been collecting clicks data from influencers, so this right here has pretty much every influencer's clicks on average, which is quite valuable data.
Please get him drunk and get him to tell
get me
us
drunk, I'll tell
everything.
you. I can tell you who not to do and who to do worldwide.
Can you give us a list?
I can charge, no. But for example, I'm not going to name names, but an influencer with 1.4 million followers did, and we paid, no, I'm not going to say anything, and did 40 clicks, and an influencer with 100K followers did 3,000 clicks, but an influencer with 2 million followers did 10,000 clicks. So there is literally no, there's no trend, but what is for sure, I've never seen above like 10,000 clicks. I've never seen that much from a story swipe up. So if Instagram is removing likes, which in US is next week, and I wouldn't recommend, screenshotting the story or the insights. The influencer can see the insights because you can Photoshop it. We all know, and you can buy everything. You can buy story views. The best way to see that is when you look at the influencers' stories and you see all the views are pretty much 50K, 49K, 48K. That's fake because there should be a huge drop-off. All this stuff I've seen over the last 3 years, and it's what's really made me realize on average, there's the most amazing 5% of these people who are fantastic. They will sell out your product in a second. But they're not influencers to me. They're like my brand advocates. They're my brand ambassadors. The 95%, honestly, it's not worth the investment. I'm seeing on average from big influencers around 300 clicks from a story. And if that's the next metric that we're going to be based on, the only thing that's visible to a brand from a trackable link, that's worrying from Instagram perspective.
But we can't measure an industry based on the worst in class. Of course, in every industry, there's shitty people doing shitty work, but then there's also really great people doing really great work. So, we definitely have a bit of a pollution in influence marketing, and that's, I think everyone can see that from their own timelines. But I don't think that we can temperature gauge on the industry based on those people.
Just to add to that as well, I think when people are talking about removing likes and all of that, that is for brands who are still using Instagram like it's 2013. Like, just putting a product in someone's hand and hoping it's going to sell is lazy marketing. Sorry, don't get triggered if that's what you're doing, right? 'Cause I don't want to get beaten up on the way out of Shoreditch House. But it's lazy, yeah? The brands, honestly, if I'm working with a brand, it's about creating experience for your customer. The end goal should not be the influencer. The end goal should be, how can we generate enough excitement, enough love, or enough interest around a brand? How can we create an experience around our brand so that, the girl that is following her gets to cuddle her favorite influencer at our event? That's what you should be focused on. It should be focused on what are you doing for your end customer, not just how many likes did you get on that post. Because, to be honest, who wants to even screenshot that? I don't want to do that for brands, So it's thinking beyond, okay, I've got that on that one post and then I'm off. I've done my job. That's lazy marketing. You've got to be thinking, how can I connect with my customer powerfully? When we put things on like Nick's Face Awards or Cantu Curl Awards, it's about the end customer at the end of the day. The influencer helps spread the message, but the end result is not, I just want to put it in the influencer's hand. That's not going to build your brand. Do you see what I mean? So I think it's thinking about, just as the industry is evolving, how do we need to evolve our approach to marketing as the people that are meant to be pioneering in marketing? We can't just be putting a lipstick in someone's hand and hoping it's going to sell out. It's impossible.
But do you think, I think the problem with brands, firstly, as one, is timing. We have tight deadlines, we have limited budget. Our main priority is making the presentation look good to our boss, and that's the reality. But I do feel because there is thousands and thousands of influencers, it's unfortunately that pollution effect that's sort of caused this issue of influencers, to be, unfortunately, what you're saying is valid. It's what we define it as. It is kind of like what your first point was. It's reach, right? It's reach. It's it's a quick reach. But I do feel in that argument we've hit peak influencer, but we haven't hit the peak idea of influencers. It's the rebranding, as I said, that 5% is my brand advocates. They're my brand ambassadors. They are influencers, but they're not influencers a la marketing. They are my brand babies, who really do, whether they have 10,000 followers or 10 million followers, they are my advocates. So I think that terminology of a basic influencer marketing, which is influencers, I think we have hit it, but I think there's a new wave of rebranding needed for those right influencers in that sector.
You hit the nail on the head. It's your core people are your people that you're building a relationship with over time. That's how I work with brands. That's how good marketing is. You don't just throw it out there and hope what sticks. It's building relationships over time. You have your little crew. You have your people that are really loving on your brand, and that love spreads to your audience. So I do. So I'm not allowed to agree, am I? I do.
So, but just work with those. Just work with those 5%. If no other brand or agency didn't work with the 95% that wasn't up to scratch, we wouldn't have an issue. You know, but the reality is that influencers sometimes, you know, doing paid partnerships is their primary source of revenue. So they take deals when perhaps they're not as authentic as they could be. And with brands, you know, sometimes a digital marketeer just needs 10 people to post about a shampoo. And that's the reality of it. But I think, you know, we're probably more sensitive to it because we are older. As you sort of mentioned, the generation coming through, they are so savvy. You know, they're very, very in tune to what is a paid partnership. So they're sort of, you know, they'll register it, they'll read the message, and if it's relevant, they'll act. And if not, they'll just kind of like swipe by as if it wasn't really relevant to them.
Do you feel that there's more of the irrelevant of those posts? Or do you feel like most of them say, oh, it's an ad, but that's really interesting?
What, from the point of view of the audience or from the point of view?
Audience, yeah.
I think it's a reflection of how well everyone is doing their job. I think if individuals, creators, digital talents are doing their job well, if brand marketeers are doing their job well, we'll have less and less of that. But if people continue to do their job lazily, I think we'll have more and more than that. And I think it's going to peak and turf as it kind of goes. But I think if I was an individual who's making their money from paid partnerships, I would be really, really careful about who I partnered with. And likewise, if I was an individual building my brand, I'd be very careful about where I put my product. But I think we're getting there.
But I think in saying that I think that's the reason why influencer marketing, as it is at its peak, because there is a lack of trust, because there are disingenuous posts, and because there's nothing to monitor what is shitty versus what is organic and authentic. And as a brand, you know, they don't have enough time to be able to monitor that. So naturally, they're not going to delve deeper to find those brand advocates and to find that 5%. They're going to go most likely with the majority. So unless internally there are people that can delve deep and actually monitor and quality control the type of influencers that they are working with, a lot of the campaigns that we see are going to be full of the generic celebrity-esque, macro-influencer-esque type of influencer.
I think if you're a brand and you're not attributing time and resource to vetting your partners, you're in trouble and you're not future-proofing yourself.
But I agree. But I think that's most brands to date. Honestly, I'm sure agencies can speak that the timelines that they give are ridiculous, and I do the same. Because it's just internal validation of things, and I think it's also, unfortunately, going backwards and forwards. And say, for example, you think you leave enough time and then the influencer can't do it. You have to find backup influence. It's just a long process of having done many partnerships. The most successful influencer partnerships that we've done have been really co-building stuff. We did one with Forever and Dazed with like a lot of like Winnie Harlow, and it was really beautiful. We actually posted it on our Dior Instagram, and that was a really successful partnership. I would call it more like a branded partnership. It wasn't an influencer partnership. And I've done so many activations and campaigns that then end up being like 1% of like the whole results of the launch. You know, it's like, oh, the media was this, the cinema was this, and you know, oh, influencers was good. Next. So it's unfortunate, but in all brands, big and small, it is quite quick.
I hear that, and I'm not blind to the realities of it, but I think it does need to be acknowledged that if we are holding that up as an excuse, then we need to be really wary of that, because all that's going to happen is, you know, 13 to 20-year-olds are flocking to TikTok. Like TikTok is just taking over, and they're there because they hate what's happening on Instagram. So if we keep doing things that don't make sense on a platform, the audience will just move. So it's in our industry collective responsibility to do better.
Yeah, and just to echo that point.
Oh no, you're off this panel.
I know, but just to reiterate it, you know, I know we, as you know, creators and brand advocates and all the other things that we want to call ourselves, think that we hold all the power in this relationship. And I do want to just drive home that your customer will tell you if your stuff is whack. Because she won't buy and she won't like and she won't engage. She will tell you if it doesn't resonate. So I think, as I said, focus on what your customer's actually doing with that content. I think it's so easy to get caught up in what we have to present back. And I get that. I've worked for the big brands. I've had to move them towards that direction. But the reality is, we need to sell product. And if your customer is not engaging, if they're not buying, if you're not seeing that market share, you're not seeing those sales, it's not working. It doesn't matter how amazing that influencer, how many followers they have. Ultimately, you have to go where the customer is. And, the reason why people are flocking is because they're basically voting with their feet. They're voting with what they're going to download, that they're bored of what we're putting out. So, yes, there may be time pressures, but it's also for us to have that confidence to say, okay, that's great, but it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Okay, can I just widen the discussion now from marketing? Because we all work in marketing, but there might be people who don't work in marketing, unbelievably. I want to widen it a little bit to talk about like influencers in culture as like cultural figures, as entertainers, as like you were saying, as like independent media platforms or people who produce content for entertainment, not for brand purposes. So it's kind of interesting to see recently that is actually maybe a like challenge for you guys that influencers kind of just on Instagram may be over, but actually we're starting to see the integration of that talent into like more mainstream media platforms. So like X Factor bringing on a whole load of TikTok stars, and actually they were the people the crowd were most excited to see, and no one really cared about like Vinnie Jones. But people were there to see like the digital talent, and also like Joe Sugg won Strictly. Did he win? I don't know if he won. Regardless, he was really, really kind of popular on Strictly. So, like, have we not hit peak influencer? We just hit the beginning of this kind of new wave of talent kind of coming into the mainstream, or do we think that them moving across is actually a signal of them needing to kind of leave behind this like dying or sinking ship of influencer marketing? I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on influencers in culture.
I would say that a lot of influencers or macro influencers are moving across because they don't want to have their livelihoods determined by apps. So I think they're smart in doing that. I think it's smart to go from being a YouTuber, whereby your content isn't actually really owned by yourself, to then becoming a media personality on TV, where you have the freedom to jump from channel to channel. And I wouldn't say, it's... I would personally say it's a negative on influencer marketing. I think people are realizing that having a purpose to their careers and to their jobs is way more important than just being an influencer with a massive following on Instagram. And that's why they're moving across, and that's why they're creating their own brand, because they know that there is more of for them to just rely on being popular on an app that people could migrate off tomorrow isn't smart or effective in terms of long term.
Can I challenge the point that moving from YouTube to a TV channel or show has more longevity or more flexibility? It absolutely doesn't. Like what YouTube has done, it's democratized content creation. It's given anyone with the ambition and the opportunity to create shows, and you can treat it like the 95%, and you can, put up a couple of videos with not that much production behind it and just kind of throw away with no strategy behind it. Or you can treat it like Cairo TV treats it, and we shoot on 50 grand cameras, the same 50 grand cameras as X Factor does. We release our shows every week at the same time, week on week. So we treat YouTube like TV, because YouTube is where the audiences are living. Like the reason that, the reason that really, really clever personalities will move their brands to different platforms, like Will Smith will have a popping Instagram and then he decides to go on YouTube, and within a year he's got millions of subscribers, is because the power is with the individual. People trust people, and that's age old. And I think the reason that TV is stagnating and literally plummeting, like, does anyone watch linear TV anymore at all, ever? Not really.
Yeah, that's great. But Kyra is a production house. It's not individual people. Like, they're no shade, but your personalities have been put together. They're not the average person who's decided to start a YouTube channel and detail their life or document their content in a way for them to grow. So for me, I get that you're using, the Kyra production as an example, but there's limited freedom on YouTube. Yes, you can create as much content as you want, but then when they decide to demonetize you, what next? If you say something that is against YouTube policy, they will, shut down your channel in a heartbeat. So, I still feel as if, you know, there's a limit to how creative or how much freedom of speech you will have on these platforms, because ultimately you do not own that content. Unless you have your own blog, unless it's mercedesbenson.com and you're posting it through WordPress or whatever it is, then I don't believe that you own your content, whether you're on YouTube or Instagram. It can immediately be taken down.
And going also to the point of, like, let's say someone going on X Factor or these kind of shows. I think when you ask those people, like myself, if someone calls me an influencer, I would be quite upset today. I would say, no, I'm a businessman. So I think maybe if you ask Joe Sugg, he might say, oh, I'm not an influencer. I'm not. Oh, one of these, the V5. Is that the TikTok people?
Yeah. So if people don't know, there's a X Factor put together an influencer band and they're all, there's like 5 of them, and they've got.
I think they would now redefine themselves, if it goes well, as not 5 influencers but a musician band, right? So I think it's really our whole peak influencer, if I may say so, Mercedes, is really about the current terminology of what an influencer is on average. You know, it's such a vague term, but for me, when someone says influencer, you don't think X Factor style. You know, you think like you would think a social media person with following on a platform like Instagram. That's just the rough, you know. But then these content, these artists, I would say like Kanye West is not an influencer. He is a rapper / streetwear designer. So I think that's where we've hit peak influencer, but we're evolving to new terminology. So influencers are sort of like the cocoon into new potential big beginnings for those social media stars.
But that issue is just in the terminology. It's not in the function.
But what is the function? That's my...
The function is everything we've been discuing.
I definitely
so it's
agree.
the same thing.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Hold on, crowd. You're going to get your turn.
I know why we really want to stop using the term influencer. It's really terrible.
That's
and
the
I'm
thing,
with you. I'm with you. But we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah. It's just to define. Like, if you say one influencer is what you're defining, I'm like for you. If it's like what I'm defining, I'm for me. So.
Okay, so if we don't use the term influencer and we just call this term of marketing individuals with the ability to sway the opinions and behaviours of others, have we reached the peak of that sector in digital?
No, but we have hit the peak of influencer.
Can I just...
You can't change the title of the debate while you're on the debate.
This is a semantic issue.
Yeah, it is a semantic issue.
Yeah, we're not doing the semantic
That's
thing.
the thing.
Come on.
But to your point as well, as someone who regularly gets called by like producers and traditional media to get influencers on the covers, it's a two-way relationship. Like, we need to not pretend that the influencer needs Vogue. Like, they don't. This is the reality. Like,
do you think Vogue needs the influencer?
No. It's a two-way relationship, is what I'm saying. There's no party that needs it. Everyone understands the exchange that is happening, right? When someone calls me and says, "Can you introduce me to that influencer?" or "We'd love. Do you think they would do whatever reality show is coming on?" They know it's because they're coming with a ready-made audience. And also that influencer knows I'm going to attract a new audience. So there's nothing different. Going back to semantics, this is just old school PR with younger, cuter, tighter girls. That's literally all it is. It's an exchange of experience and it's an exchange of audience. That's literally all it is. So it's that thing of, it doesn't mean that, because they're moving on to TV shows, that influencer marketing is dying. It just means that they've wised up that I need to tap into other audiences.
I think that's a really important point on cross-pollinating audiences, which is exactly what you're talking about. I think that's really the key here. I was doing a little bit of reading on the KSI Logan Paul fight yesterday, over the weekend, whenever it was. And there was no stat.
So can we do a bit of Précis, because people here may not be so in tune to influencer wrestling matches.
So KSI is yeah.
I was tuned in, but other people may not have been.
KSI is like a British gamer YouTuber, and Logan Paul did a really silly thing where he was like a really big creator on Vine, then he moved to YouTube. They both have like 20 million subscribers. They did a fight in 2018, and those are the only stats I can get.
Like a boxing match.
Like a boxing match, yeah. They were like trying to find who's the king of social media or something. But over like a few days, that fight last year, this fight was bigger. So the live audience for this fight was way bigger, but we don't have any stats yet because it was like yesterday. Last year's fight grossed 25.8 million viewers. And just as a comparative, the last Anthony Joshua fight got 13 million viewers. It's like, that's unbelievable. They're not boxers, they're YouTubers. But because what they wanted to do is they wanted to create a boxing match. You know, boxing's obviously thrilled because they've got all this young new audience that's never engaged with boxing before. They had like real fighters doing the warm up to the real fight, which was in Vegas. Like, it's mental. So, you know, when actually we look a little bit broader and we have like these YouTube stars, influencers, whatever you want to call them, that have built their own media channels, you know, monetized it and then moved it on to more like traditional industries, like, for example, sports and boxing. You know, the sport has benefited because there's a new audience that's engaged with it. YouTubers have benefited because they're making shitloads of money, sort of winning all around. And we're just at the beginning of that.
Yeah, I agree. That I would highly recommend everyone go and actually look up this like ongoing saga. It's really interesting between the two of them, because it's kind of been interpreted as like a fight for ratings, because obviously the joint power of two influencers taking each other on has generated like so much money for both of them. We have time for like one more talking point before we open it up to this extremely rowdy crowd. So I just wanted to talk about the F word, Fire Festival. I'm sorry, someone had to say it. And like huge public appetite for influencer downfall, Schadenfreude when things go wrong. So recently, obviously, Fire Festival was ages ago now, but like this has been the summer of Caroline Calloway. There's very recently been some drama in the mummy blogger sphere, which you can go away and Google afterwards. But I'm just wondering whether this huge public appetite for influencer downfall is kind of symbolic of influencers having hit their peak and people just desperate to kind of find anything that drags them back down, or whether the fact that the public is so engaged with influencer drama and influencer scandals. I mean, there are whole like T channels on YouTube that purely exist just to document influencer drama, is actually just proof of their like enduring cultural power, and the fact that we're kind of so obsessed with watching all their like intimate drama and daily goings on. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about whether influencer drama is...
I just want to say something about this very thing. Yeah. I'm not going to mention names.
Have you been involved in an influencer scandal?
I have not been involved recently in an influencer scandal, but or ever, before you look it up. But here's the thing. Here's the truth. Right? Two things. First of all, we live in a world right now of micro emotions. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah, so today I can be shocked and appalled about something and go on a rant. And tomorrow I can show you me chilling on the beach in Jamaica. It makes no difference. You wouldn't have made any, it doesn't make any difference. So what we see as a scandal, like back in the day, a scandal would get someone to lose their football club or, you know, get dropped by a major company. And then, yeah, this still happens. But what we see as a scandal now in this environment of content is yesterday's news, not even yesterday's, it's the last hour's news. So like when we think about young people, and I'm just going to refer to beauty because that's my world, those beauty beefs, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
They're not...
The Dramageddon, that's a good thing to Google.
It's jokes. It's funny. It's funny to watch Jeffree Star and Kat Von D falling out. It's funny. No one is thinking this is a scandal. No one thinks that. So I think it's that thing where now we've got a platform, we can all have a say on the way someone is behaving because it's so easy to throw away. But we shouldn't maybe attach as much energy to it as we think. And I'm not saying people should just behave in any which way they want. I think if you're going to work with an influencer, you want them to do the best that they can to represent your brand. But going back to what your customer's thinking, she's literally hitting like, she's hitting sad face, she's hitting that, and then she moves on. It's really not as... you know, it doesn't damage in the way that we like to think it's damaging that influencer.
Yeah, and to the point about Logan Paul, who filmed dead bodies in a park in Japan, which caused a massive issue for him. He was one of the top followed. He actually hasn't. He like lost loads of followers afterwards.
I think his YouTube actually got shut down. Rightfully, it was a really silly thing to do.
But then he's back up now, and he's making money, and so like that issue, that whole horrendous, awful situation, actually didn't bring about his downfall or necessarily impact him, other than of course emotionally, but financially not particularly.
It's scary. It is scary. I do think it's scary for that reason. That people can do whatever and get away with it. But we almost follow the people that are doing the crazy things because it's entertainment. So we're all feeding into it in one way.
Yeah. Do you guys have any thought about influencer drama, scandals, scams, Fire Festival?
I think from a Fire Festival point of view, I think that the thing that exposed for me was every influencer has definitely a price tag. And I felt like that exposed I think for established reputation like Coachella and things that would succeed, you can understand that it's a pretty normal thing for an influencer to be involved with, and they have credibility in this. Fire Festival was that example of there is no kind of financial I don't think the influencers ask for much details on the P&L of is it really going to go live, what's happening. All they probably saw was, okay, I don't really know this company, I don't know Fire Festival, but okay, you're going to pay me 100K plus? Great, I'll do it. And I think that kind of exposed that everyone could be bought in a way. So from that again, it's all what you define. This, I think you guys have a really hard job to decide, because I feel like it's the definition of your own way of influence. But to me, if an influence was defined as credibility and authenticity, then it's quite hard to say that we haven't, I don't know, this is a very weird way, haven't hit peak. It's very hard to say, that influencers are trustable anymore.
Do you think that was the fault of the influencers? Have you guys watched the Fire Festival document? Was that really the fault of the influencer or just the dodgy guy?
50-50, I would say. I mean, I personally would not, if I didn't do my homework and didn't know, I would have a way to, the way you message it. Guys, this is meant to be the most exciting event. Yeah. I've never heard of this company, but it should be good. Join me. Great. But if you're this is going to be the best event of your life, buy tickets, and then boom, they don't even come. To me, that's a problem. But I think that was just a choice. Going back to our initial point of the choice, that 5%, 95%, it's just unfortunate that Fire Festival was probably not the best choice of credible influencers who exposed that kind of nasty side of the influencers being money-driven.
And I just also think it's also quite scary to see how much power and how much of a pedestal we're putting normal people on just because they're good at recommending certain beauty products over the other, that they can now have massive arguments, or they can start slandering other people, creating false accounts. It's ridiculous. These are just normal people. And I feel like we're doing ourselves a disservice by creating such a massive gap between what we think they're on just because they have a certain following over what they actually are. They are just humans. They're like your brothers, your sisters, your cousins. There's nothing different to them than the average person. But we are giving them that power. And that's what I don't think we should be doing unless they've earned it.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to open up to the audience now. If any of you guys have any kind of challenges, any comments you want to make, actually try and please make it a question, because that's always really annoying when people do that. Can you stick your hands up, and then does someone have a microphone? Someone has a microphone. Okay, so before your question, can you say your name so we know who you are, and whether you think we've hit peak influencer or not? Yes, down the front.
Hi, I'm Holly. I was with the motion that we have hit peak influencer. I think you've presented a really strong argument, but in light of what you were saying about the mummy blogger that's
Which was deliberately not a lot, because I'm quite scared.
Basically, she was accused of online trolling. She set up a fake account on this tattle site. And the damage to the brands that she works with, obviously I'm sure a lot of them will drop her. Do you think there'll be a move towards people using AI influencers to protect themselves from, backstories coming out? We've worked with Disney before, you have to really vet the character, the person that you're putting forward, and just what your views are on AI influencers. Because to me, I follow people, they look like me and they've got the same shape as me, so I might buy their dress. I'm never going to buy anything that a robot puts forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will probably share that sentiment. I think AI is really fascinating from the point of view of both creators and, whether they're all going to take our jobs one day. But, I think what builds that human-to-human connection is, that empathy and that creativity. And, would you buy a cream from a robot. I don't know. I think. Yeah, no, she's definitely.
But you're not wearing Ugg boots, are you? So there you go.
You know, effective, definitely. I'd be weary about moving to backing AI influencers because humans are flawed and they might do something that doesn't sit well either sort of ethically or from the point of view of a contract. I think they might grow to sit alongside human influencers, but I think you just kind of have to be prepared when you work with any creator that they might do something really silly and have like an ethics clause in the contract that makes you able to pull out. But aside from that, I think you just kind of have to roll with the punches a little bit.
I actually have hired like Nunuri. I don't know if you know Nunuri. So I did a paid stuff with her at Dior. And two things. One is I know the creator behind Nunuri. So that to me is the influencer behind the robot. So I think there is someone, I'm not going to say the name, but I know who Nunuri really is. And when I see Nunuri, I see the person. So I think there's that sense, but I also feel we got a lot of obviously backlash from using Nunuri because we tried to make it like a fun way of showcasing how to use skincare. But a lot of people were obviously not comfortable with it as expected. But a lot of people wrote on our Instagram like, oh yeah, there's nothing different between this and Gigi Hadid. It's all fake. It's all the same. It's all photoshopped and all. So I was like, oh, that's something interesting, like reverse psychology of like maybe a virtual influencer is just as close to the real, what they would say is like a real influencer. So I think there is not necessarily a safety net with virtual influencers. I would classify them in a similar light, just in a different pool, but it is still an influencer and they can still make mistakes.
Just to add as well, there's another AI influencer called Makila, who's got like over 1.3 million followers.
The digital fairy worked with little Michaela. I've just got to get that in there.
So there's definitely
she's crazy.
an
Look her up.
appetite.
It's at little Michaela.
At little Michaela. So there's definitely an appetite for it. So yeah, just to echo his point.
But I think that makes the point about what the role of the influencer is, and that is reach. Ultimately, that is their role. Because if you're going to give an AI something, you have created it as the brand. So it's the brand's job to influence. And I really can't stress it enough for anyone who is working in marketing, isn't working in marketing. Always know that ultimately it's your job to influence. It's not someone else's job to influence whether someone's going to buy. Do you see what I mean? I think that's what it comes down to. Yes, it's a collaboration with the influencer, but if we're moving towards AI, I personally can't imagine being influenced by that, but I can see why people are.
Also, we really have to move away from the authenticity point if we're giving robots skincare, you know?
Just leave it alone.
You know?
Perfect. Okay, does anyone else have any... Oh, yeah, there's someone back there I can see with the hand up. Just maybe, yeah, shout.
Hi there. Oh, hi. Layla, thanks, guys. I think you've all raised really interesting points. I'm for influencers, but I have questions for both sides, if you don't mind. I work in marketing, so for Akash, you talked about measuring clicks, and we get that from clients all the time, you know, but what's the impact? What's the impact? And, you know, as you were saying, on the influencer side, it's about raising awareness. So my question for you guys is talking about, you know, getting over dramas and people finding it entertainment. I still follow influencers that have kind of disappointed me, and the reason why I followed them for kind of shits and giggles and just to see what they're up to, but I don't find them influential anymore. Now I just follow them out of interest. And we've also noticed when kind of doing audits for brands that people get a lot of hate followers just because they want to. And I also used to work for a charity, so we used to have loads of hate followers, people who just wanted to troll us. So I kind of just want to know from your point of view, if you're saying raising awareness, how do we ensure that, you know, the followers are following us for the right reason? And then to you, Akash, on clicks, we know that people scroll through Instagram, myself included, and you don't just kind of click on an advert and buy straight away, especially if you're buying Dior products. Those are very expensive. You might look at it 5 times, and then maybe if you're lucky 6 months later you might buy it, and you can't attribute sales to that one influencer's post. So I wanted to know if you've seen a raise in sales correlated for investment in influencer marketing that doesn't necessarily relate to people clicking on the exact advert and purchasing straight away. So it's kind of a question to both sides, really. Thanks.
Should I
Who
start?
wants to take it first? Yeah, go.
Yeah, so from the clicks point, I 100% agree. I also think it depends on your type of business. If you're a pure player, if you have loads of touch points, like if you're in every single booth, or if you're only online, that more makes a difference. And if it's a new product or an existing product. So I wouldn't say like clicks is the best metric to obviously benchmark against influencers. I do think it's one of the best metrics currently just to benchmark against kind of like internal benchmarking and kind of, okay, this one gave me X amount of clicks, so I can justify to say they probably got X amount of reach on their stories as opposed to X amount. I would say like it's very hard today to find influencer marketing in general is it's a gray area, and I think I'm just yearning for the most business oriented metrics to justify those spends that I've been doing. But more importantly, increasingly forced to do. So that's why clicks has been a hot topic for me. I think, obviously, there are ways you can do, for example, in-store events with influencers. You can do, like, go to store, and it depends on your business. But I do feel I've seen the best correlation to sales and influencers has been from my stories and from my clicks on Instagram, or from YouTube clicks. YouTube is the most powerful one by far in terms of getting the most clicks. But I would say, unfortunately, sales and influencers isn't the best kind of correlation point, but it doesn't need to be, because I'm not saying influencers are salesmen. You know, like they're not meant to necessarily sell, but they're not necessarily meant to be that expensive. So therefore, it's hard for me to justify when I'm paying 10,000 euros to then say, oh, I'm just getting that reach, because then I might go back to my ads, my online ads, because I've seen from recruitment of followers to sales, shop now ads have been 10 times more effective than any influencer. I think today, even me speaking, all the celebrities have tagged me in my personal account, not to name names, but some of the biggest, I get like 10 followers. And I'm like, oh, I got 10 followers from this person with 20 million followers when they tag me. So it's just defining what you're happy with as a brand. If you're a brand or marketer that really wants a sense of an ROI, or your boss is saying to you, look, what am I getting for putting 100K on influencer marketing? Then you got to kind of put what I've been putting on my head and that kind of mentality. If you're kind of chilled and be like, it's just awareness, then influencers is great.
I would argue, having been in your situation, I would argue that there is a slightly different view on this as well. I think we have to remember, to Mercedes' points there, we're dealing with humans. Yeah, I know there's some AI, but we're dealing with humans. And here's the thing, if nobody in the world dislikes you, then you're probably really boring. This is the truth of it. We can't expect every single person to not have, historically, that's always been the case. I've done celebrity junkets back in the day where people would queue for 4 hours just to hurl an insult at the celebrity. It wasn't me. But it has. It
comes out. This is the scandal.
No, this is the scandal. This isn't anything new, and I think we have to be asking the right questions about who it is you're working with. And I think this is the point that everyone is making here. Even though you don't see it as necessarily a sales metric, I've worked with a number of brands who have gone from being number 3 market share to number 1 in market share with no other spend apart from influencer spend. So there is definitely a direct correlation between the work that you're doing with the right influencers and sales. There is no doubt in my mind, If I think about NYX Cosmetics, the smallest, tiniest brand in L'Oreal, bearing in mind L'Oreal spends a lot of money on ads, came in and completely disrupted the market with zero spend on anything apart. In fact, we didn't even spend on influencers because back then they weren't called that. We just used to give them product. So I think there is a direct link. And to your point, you may not see it from that one ad, that one post, but unfortunately, we've seen it with the elections. All people need to do is see something a lot for them to trust it or believe that it's more credible. That is just human nature, human psychology. The more we see something, the more it becomes familiar to us, the more we trust it. That's not ever going to change.
And I think like from a sales point of view, I 100% agree. I think traditionally influencer marketing, when you increase your investment, you're going to see a sales return. I've shifted a lot of my budget to community, so that's why I think the future is really community. Really like, I know you can redefine them as nano influencers, but it's like really like that 1,000, 2,000, like real people. It's proven in the clicks and sales with the budget in terms of like when you kind of look at the budget share of influencers and budget share of community, you have to have a lot of community, but the sales and the clicks today are 10 times better than influencers. But it takes a force. You need a great agency, and you need a lot of time and energy to do community at scale. But that's how Fenty, that's how Glossier, that's how they all grew. And I think I've been doing that recently at Dior, and I'm going to continue to consult for LVMH on this. My focus is all now on community and not on influencers. So that's why I really believe like we're peak influencer, but we're hot on community right now.
Cool.
Just highlighting that they're still the same thing, though.
No, but I would
Like
say, would
the
you
same
all in
thing.
the room call yourself influencers, or okay, you wouldn't call yourself community, but like, would you call yourself influencers?
Like, whatever.
But you would be the ones I would be targeting.
Do you know what? You can take this outside.
It's really,
Okay.
someone very niche, small.
It is. We've probably got time for one more question, and then we will do a vote. There's someone over there with a question.
Hi, I work in fashion, and recently, I guess over the last year or two, I've noticed there's been a lot of models who are influencers / Instagram models, whatever you call it. And I just wondered if you all have an opinion on the change in kind of, I guess, these influencers being employed by big fashion companies versus a traditional model that would have come from an agency, and just the impact they have without really having anything else behind them, without having any other kind of talent. I guess I find influencers problematic when they don't really have anything to say other than to sell you a cream. And I wondered if you, with the brands that you work with, if you've kind of, how much importance you put on the person being, I guess we've spoken about being authentic.
Yeah, this is interesting. So would you say that when you were booking models, those models had something to stand for? Because the way that the narrative goes working at an agency that does cast influencers for campaigns is that traditionally models who were booked on a face alone and potentially some wafting around in front of a video camera didn't have something to say. And now that we use influencers, it's like, okay, but I can understand your personality, I can get under the skin of like who you are and
so some
and
of
what
the
you do.
commercial brands that I work for employ models who look the same. They all look the same. And I guess you could argue traditionally some other traditional models look the same. But there was something that there was more to communicate because they kind of honed their craft. They had learned how to communicate in front of a camera, learn how to, show their personality. Whereas I think there's kind of an increasing Instagram face, model and body that kind of doesn't leave much kind of diversity.
I think on the one hand, you definitely do have like the Instagram body, Instagram face, kind of everyone's got the same eyebrows, all of that sort of thing, like a real hegemony in like what like the Instagram face looks like in 2019. But I think at the same time, because it is a platform that's used by real people, however legitimate those real people are in their sort of passions and creativities, I think what it does do is it shows people who really look different, or people who are real, who have, conditions and don't look perfect and have different types of, skin, hair, body shapes. And I think, we owe a lot of the sort of diversity and kind of wider representation of people to social media. And I think because, the reason that brands like Glossier and Fenty are so successful is because, particularly Glossier, they do put real people in their campaigns. They are much more vocal about not, using the kind of traditionally beautiful, whatever that means, sort of face. So I think in the sense that it does give you like sort of, you know, everyone sort of looks like a watered down Kim Kardashian, yes. But I think on the other side, you have lots and lots of very, very, very different people as well. And I think that's a huge benefit to the platform.
Thoughts? Do you have any opinions? No opinions?
Yeah, I agree. I think
Yeah.
I think it's really that redefining of. I think it's Instagram has helped open up what the terminology of model is. But yeah, I think it still goes away. Well, I wouldn't say those people would define themselves as influencers. I think they would define themselves as like spokespeople, or it's that we go backwards and forwards. It's just this definition of what is influencers. Like even I don't understand. So I would say, yeah, like I just think today no one really would want to be called influencer, like a model, a new model like Winnie. She wouldn't be want to be called an influencer. She would want to be called a model, but she might have been born from the social media terminology of an influencer, but she's evolved into an actual like role, a job. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's a very hard thing to define. Yeah, I think it's just. Yeah. I think influencer puts puts a blanket approach on what people are, and I think people want to be more unique than that. So I think that's why the notion of influencer is so strong and alive and will continue. I just think that word has got to go.
Okay.
But don't you think they want to have like a niche point of view, and therefore they could be redefined as a different? Like I don't know. Would everyone be happy to say, "Hi, I'm an influencer"?
Some people will.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, for
Maybe
the
they would,
1 in 5
maybe they would.
kids
Yeah.
who do want to be.
But I don't think, I feel like there's a lack of understanding of what it actually is. I don't think people, if I said I'm an influencer, then I need to elaborate. Doing what? And I think when you can elaborate and further, say I'm an influencer because I do da-da-da-da-da, then we can really get to the crux of who you actually are and what you're representing. And it would be nicer if we kind of got to that point and not just said I'm an influencer or put public figure on my Instagram bio, whatever that is.
Everyone is a public figure now. Sorry, it's making me
We're all on a
laugh.
public
Everyone's
platform.
a public figure. No, I do hear that, but I think it's important to just not have that one single narrative. I'm a brand consultant between the hours of 11 and 4, 3 days a week. Yep. But it's so that's
Great.
But you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that that's all you do.
No, I'm being mean. It's only 11 till 4 because you're doing all these other things, whereas I'd just be going home.
Sometimes I'm just watching Netflix. But what I'm trying to say is that you can actually just be that. It's enough. I think we need to stop thinking that we have to have all these million layers. That, of course, that's that person's responsibility to do good things and put good into the world. But it's not, I don't like the way that we're downplaying what people do. And that is actually, they are connecting with a lot of people. There are people that do look up to them because of what they've achieved, because they've come from where they've come from.
But I think the danger is that it's such a flat terminology for who they are. When young children are looking at that, they're not able to delve deeper to see how multi-layered that person is. So then when you do have 6-year-olds saying, I want to be an influencer, it's just kind of like, okay, but what then? And that's why I think that the danger and the perception of it is quite scary.
Okay, we're going to have to end on that point. So we are now going to vote again. So if you believe we have hit peak influencer, put your hand up now. And hold it up there, because they're going to need to count. This is why we have someone voting. Yeah, we're seeing if you guys have changed people's minds or not. Okay, is that good? Okay, cool. And then if you think we haven't hit peak influencer, put your hand up. Ooh, okay. Emily's now going to really kindly count the votes, and you're going to send me a really clear message, aren't you, Emily, as to whether it's one or not. So in the meantime, I'm going to do some influencer trivia. Okay, no. Which Love Islander has the most fake followers? Double points if you know what percentage. Last season. Come on, this isn't.
I don't watch Love Island.
Okay, I'm
No
going to
one
tell you.
watches
It's
linear TV. No.
Moira. It's not Moira. It's How do you say her name? Mora. Sorry, I thought it was Oh God, I don't watch it either. Amber, with 65% fake followers. I know.
Didn't she win?
What is the highest? What is the highest recorded value of a paid post on Instagram?
750,000. Is that Kim?
Yeah, an extra point if you know who.
It's definitely Kim Kardashian. I think it was 3/4 of a mil.
It's Kylie, and $1.2 million. Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
but they're already rich.
And then one more. I know. And then one more is going to be how many influencers are there on Instagram? So the definition of influencer by which we're going is above 15,000 followers and not an aggregator account, so not a meme account, like a person posting. It was Instagram ransom figures.
$1 million.
No,
probably like 400,000.
500,000?
just over 500,000 of influencers, and only 1% of influencers have more than 1 million followers. So yeah. Emily, you still going?
That was really good trivia.
Are you
Enjoyed
done?
that.
Okay, cool. Can you WhatsApp me the? I know we're digi fairies. Okay. Wow. Okay. So that doesn't make sense. Sorry. Clarify that. No. Yeah, so more people voted, so clearly we had some latecomers, but don't need the metadata, I need... Does this house believe we've hit peak influencer? No, this house does not believe we've hit peak influencer. Thank you so much, guys. Can you give the panelists a massive round of applause? Thank you so much. And also, thank you to DigiFairy for concepting this wonderful event. And thank you again to Shoreditch House for hosting and sponsoring us. I should also say on the way out, there are these posters where you can go and vote on other funny things. So go and do that on the way out. And also have a drink, stick around. Thank you guys so much. Bye.